Tony Snell.
BBC Radio Merseyside.
7:10. Now, Knowsley is the hardest place in England to be a teenager. That's the bold findings of a new research from a Liverpool-based charity. Education specialist Ambitious Minds says it's all down to the lack of educational and employment opportunities for young people in the borough. They've also looked at the best places, and as I mentioned before, they're down south, as you'd expect, the likes of Kingston upon Thames and also Windsor as well. So, why is it so bad in Knowsley? Sean McGuire is the chief executive of Ambitious Minds. I'm glad to say he joins me in the studio. Sean, good morning to you.
Good morning, Tony.
How have you come to this conclusion?
What we did was to analyse data, all publicly available government data, across the four things that we thought had the biggest impact on the environment in the general sense that a young adult finds themselves in when they're going to try and build a career and a life for themselves, to become an independent, self-sustaining person, which is what we all want to be. And we thought that they were education, employment, housing, and general social milieu, as it were. And by any analysis of those statistics, given a weighting, which they have to have, which we've done on publicly available information, Knowsley does come out as the toughest place in England for a teenager.
If I was waking up in Knowsley this morning, I would probably be thinking, well, look, I know it's bad, but surely it can't be that bad. Surely we can't be the worst in England.
It is a bit misleading in the sense that it can create the impression that, you know, it's at the bottom by a long way of a very long list. That's
your own research is misleading. Is that what you've just said to me?
No. Well, it's misleading in the sense that you could get the impression that it's at the bottom of a league table in the sense of being sort of on the verge of relegation. Knowsley is like a lot of other places. It just happens to be a little bit worse across the averages when you assess each of them.
So why put the boot into Knowsley then? If it's just a little bit worse than, say, where I live in Holton, or it's a little bit worse than Wirral, why put the boot in and say this is the worst in England?
No, we're not trying to put the boot. What we're trying to do is to address something honestly, which is regarded as a big national problem, which is the future of young adults in the teeth of the worst recession since the Great Depression of the 1920s. How are they going to get jobs and build independent lives for themselves? Which is what, Tony, everybody wants them to do.
Of course.
Well, the first problem they come across is educational achievement. I think everyone would accept that traditionally there has been a link between education and high-paid, secure employment. Let me give you one of the key stats on Knowsley. It's very poor at its levels of achievement in terms of GCSE grades A to C. Only 40% of Knowsley students pass. When you look at things like access to university, this is an incredible one. If you had a class of 30 sixth formers in Knowsley, only one of them will go on to a top 30 university, and that includes Liverpool or Manchester, which are within a bus ride. So what we are doing when you say put the boot in, I do take your point, and I certainly don't want to put the boot in. I'm from the areas, I'm from St Helens, so it's only around the corner. Because
the council, from their statement, they're questioning these findings, and we're going to talk to them a bit later on, but they're questioning these findings and how you came to
it's publicly available government data, and I think the important thing is that it's not to malign Knowsley or to blacken the reputation of Knowsley. If anything, I think it's a very good argument for Knowsley, saying that it needs greater resources. Knowsley has faced, anyone who's familiar with this area knows that it has some deep structural problems, which are not the fault of anyone who's around now, certainly not the young adults that are in Knowsley. So in trying to point out some of the difficulties they face, our objective is to get them greater resources to equip them to be able to make the fight better.
Where do we play our part in this? I'm in my late 40s now. There will be people older than me, and it's easy to say, oh, the young people of today, oh, they're all sitting on Xboxes, oh, they couldn't be bothered. And that certainly isn't the case. And if I was 17 or 18, I would be really cheesed off with people who thought that about me.
I couldn't agree more. I don't think there's no evidence that young adults are less virtuous than they've ever been. I think that's one of the really misleading conclusions to arrive at. The fact is that we're in the teeth of a very big recession. Government cuts have been deep, and I think will get deeper. I forget what percentage of them have been implemented yet, but it's nothing nearly like 100%. So our purpose in this is to say, we cannot be blind to the statistics and to the facts. And as I stressed, Tony, these are not from Ambitious Minds. These are from the government. We've simply put them together. And I think that the conclusion is that young adults need more help than we're currently giving them in order to set them on the path to build to achieve their own aspirations, which is the first thing, and to build secure, well-paid, independent adult lives.
Do you think the older generations, we do sympathise, we try to empathise as much as we can, but do you think we really understand the plight of somebody who's 17 or 18 now?
I think it's extremely difficult because one of the points that we try to bring out in this report is that for the first time in living memory, this generation could be worse off than its parents. Well, that's contrary to everything that you and me and everyone else who's over 40 in the UK has experienced in their adult lifetimes. It has been axiomatic that you've been better off than your mum and dad, who were better off than their mum and dad. So if that stops, it's got enormous consequences for all of us, and it's got nothing to do with any perceived lack of virtue in you. I don't believe that, actually. In fact, I think that under more pressure than certainly my generation were in terms of access to education and jobs, and if they go to university, they come out with a debt of £30,000-40,000 and no longer any guarantee of a job. Well, that wasn't true for my generation.
All right, well, not mine, but Sean, thank you very much indeed for talking to me this morning. I do appreciate it. There's Sean McGuire is the Chief Executive of Ambitious Minds, just with the findings of those that research there. But in a statement, Knowsley Council say we have an extensive offering of activities, facilities and support available, and we know that this engagement with our young people is helping to make a real difference. The picture of teenagers painted in this report certainly isn't the one that we recognise, and we'd be interested to know how some of the conclusions were drawn. But Sean explained how he got to the conclusions there in my previous chat. But that is the statement from Knowsley Council there. But your thoughts are very welcome. 0151 709 9333. 16 minutes past 7. Good morning.